Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gene Pokorny.
Thank you very kindly. It's a real pleasure to be invited here once again to be here at this great conference, and I'm so glad Pinchas Zuckerman is wasting his time in Chicago this week doing music of the masters so I can be off to do this. This is just great. We try to get those things to happen. You never know how much influence tuba players can have on programming, you know, so at least it's at least in my own mind, I'd like to think that. But, well, I wanted to get some playing in for sure, at least make sure I got some playing in for you folks today, because when given the opportunity of working on a master class or a clinic or something like this, I was figuring, okay, well, you know, we can go through the excerpts, you know, and go through what this usual list, what everybody's been going through with all the auditions that have been happening over the past 2 or 3 years. And I had a little discussion with Ross Morgan and Jack Tilbury, and I asked them about a subject matter that everybody knows about, no one wants to talk about, and they said, sure, go for it. You know, I think by now they've probably left the building. The name of this clinic is called, Boy, I Never Screwed That Lick Up Before. What it is the process of turning old. It was a little over 30 years ago, slightly over 30 years ago, when a young second-year college student from the University of Redlands played at one of the greatest events that ever happened in the 20th century. And for us, that was the first International Tuba Symposium Workshop in Bloomington, Indiana. And I had the opportunity back then of playing. And I'll never forget that experience and the great amount of inertia that was undertaken by Harvey Phillips to make that event happen. And I publicly tip my hat to him for putting that thing together. But you know, that was 30 years ago. Last May, I turned 50. When Mozart was my age, he had already been dead for a decade and a half. I feel fine mostly. I get up in the middle of the night with intent. I groan without intent. It just happens. When I'm done doing my 30 minutes on the elliptical at Valleys, I know people are looking at me not out of envy, admiration, or, God forbid, lust like it used to be. At least in my own mind, the way it used to be. I feel they're ready to drop their plastic Gatorade bottles from their mouths, forget the peasant music they are listening to on their earphones, and lunge for their cell phones to dial 911 for the nearest EMS cardiac unit. My eyesight has slipped into the bounds of bifocaldom. I now have music reading glasses, just like the old farts in my orchestra. Wait a minute. I think I've become one of them. Yeah, you'll really love those glasses. I'll be wearing them tonight. They were a start of... They kind of look like Harry Potter's glasses, except that when they're on me, they kind of look like hairless porker glasses. So, all right. Actually, the discussion I wanted to kind of talk to you about, and it's one that I'm increasingly find more and more information, because it's all here. It's all happening right now. And that is playing on the decline. It always declines. After the age of 25, your physical body starts to die. And I would imagine that includes probably a lot of us here. But this discussion is not just for the people who've had their hair removed and what hair is there, had it turned gray, you know, gone to the hair color stylist to have it turned gray. No. It's for everybody, because we're talking about the longevity of your career, longevity of your hobby, because we all want to be playing as well as we can, as long as we can, until the end. And being in the position I am in my orchestra, I'm seeing stuff happen all the time, especially over now in Chicago, about 13, 14 years, something like that. This is one of the most difficult topics to even bring up, because everybody knows about it, nobody wants to talk about it. I certainly can't talk about it at work. Our bodies start to decline. we can only try to slow it down. So is this a topic that is best left unsaid, even though we think about it a lot of the time? We all want to improve. None of us want to believe that our playing diminishes over time. We are afraid that we may become those other people we have noticed whose playing is on the decline. In fact, we may in the past have become very unforgiving of those people in the ensemble we play with who really sound bad. And we know who we're talking about, don't we? It's all those other people, right? Now we are faced with the prospect that we may become one of them. Lately, I've become very reluctant to be as hard on my colleagues as I once was, because I can start to see a little bit of myself in these colleagues who are starting to lose it. So how do we constructively approach the problem that eventually affects us all? And like I said, just because you're only 25, don't think that this is not something that's going to affect you. It will. Let me be clear, though. I'm not talking about players who don't care about their playing and never have. I'm not talking about the players who never ever wanted to get something in tune since they got the job 30 years before. They are the ones who give musicians unions questionable reputations, because the unions have no recourse but to protect people's jobs, no matter how incompetent the players may be. It is the music director's fault for allowing incompetence to go unchecked. It's the board of directors' fault and the fault of the management to allow the music director to not do his or her job. Being a music director is not just about getting the accolades after a concert. It is about hiring and firing people who will directly affect ensemble for years to come, well after the music director has long since moved on. It's kind of like the Supreme Court. That is why a music director is overpaid. They've got to make these life-changing decisions. It's on his shoulders, and it has to do with the well-being of the orchestra for years to come. There was a situation that happened some years ago at the Schulte Orchestra project, which happened in New York City, where Sir George got together some principal players from around different orchestras in the country, and he had a bunch of young students come in and play. We put a big concert on at Carnegie Hall. Well, one day we got the coaches, and I was one of the coaches, we all got this notice that there was going to be a press conference, and Sir George wanted us to all be there. So, okay. We didn't know what it was about or anything. So we all sat down, big round table, bunch of press people there, cameras, television, all this. And Sir George starts with, he says, everybody after the age of 65 in orchestras should be fired. They should be let go, just like they are in Europe. You know, after the age of 65, you're out. It's over. It may even be 60 in some orchestras, 63, something like that. I know Roger Bobo's contract has changed a little bit because, you know, he's reached that age where he's not supposed to be around anymore. He's no longer useful. So his tenure with the different conservatories he works with is a little bit in question. But anyway, Sir George went on about this, and we were kind of all in shock because some of the coaches were getting pretty near this age, and I was a little upset about it. So I talked with Schulte later after making an appointment with his manager. And I went into his dressing room. It was a private one-on-one, and I don't think I'm really talking out of school. I mean, he's dead, and you all can keep a secret, can't you? That's right. This meeting never happened. And I said, Maestro, I happen to have Bud Herseth's phone number here. I wonder if you might want to give him a call, tell him he ought to send in his resignation papers to the orchestra. And he says, oh, well, Herseth. Why? Herseth. Well, you know, what was he then? I don't know. 100 and, no, I can't remember. It's just, you know, but Herseth was, but Schulte said, no, it's, you know, it's just not a problem with him. I said, so I just want to make sure that we're not talking about age. We're talking about quality of playing and quality of interest in that. So, I don't know. I mean, obviously it didn't change him enough for him to reissue a new press release or something, but it obviously got him to talking about it, because, of course, one of the questions from the newspaper people said, well, what about conductors? Should conductors be let out at the age of 65? And yes! That's what we're talking about. And oh no, conductors, they only come into their prime in their 80s, you know. Right. That's right. I remember that last read through of Petrushka. Man, it was a round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. Okay. Anyway, back to what I'm speaking about players who actually do care, and of course that's, I'm assuming, I mean, the people who wouldn't care probably wouldn't be at a music conference anyway. But the people who do care, that's who I'm more or less speaking about. Now, and I'm experiencing this too, it's requiring more effort to get my act together. It requires more time to warm up. I notice my batting average starting to slip when I'm going for notes. I can start to see at certain times, all of a sudden, for no reason, I'll have a note that'll start to quiver, start to shake and bake. I'm wondering, okay, what's going on here? I'm not nervous. There's no reason for this to be happening, you know, except for the fact of, you know, I've been on the planet for 50 years now. So things start to happen. So the question of this whole clinic, the questions I want to ask is, how do we maintain and preserve our own playing? On a more basic level, how do we even know that we have lost ground? How do we keep our physical abilities agile on the instrument? How do we keep our mental alertness focused? How do we keep our musical engines running? And with what fuel do we run those engines? We do not have a 40-year, 400,000 note warranty on our playing like you might have on your car. There are no guarantees. We have to make do with what we've inherited. What I believe we all experience is the built-in obsolescence of our minds and our bodies. As in the book Tuesdays with Morrie, which is actually a very good book, that's about the day-to-day life of someone who's dying. It was actually, I think, was it Tom Brokaw or Nightline, Koppel, visiting Morrie, who has this debilitating disease, and every week they see him, and you can watch his physical decline. For some reason, mentally, he's just coming to a higher and higher degree of distillation as far as what he wants to do. Well, Morrie is quoted as saying, "Everybody knows they're going to die, but nobody believes it." And to adapt that phrase to our topic here today, we can say that everybody's playing declines, but none of us want to believe it can happen to us. So, a couple things that I want to talk about. First of all, are physical activities that we can do as players, whether you're young or on the older side, that I think are pretty important, that we kind of sometimes neglect, sometimes don't do at all. We know it's the right thing to do. Yeah, I know Krispy Kreme donuts are not good for me. Yeah, really good. It's good information that I do not ignore at all. I mean, I don't pay attention to at all. I mean, I'm having a good time. But the things that we know we ought to do, and one of the physical activities I think we should probably continue to do or start doing if we haven't done it is simply basic stretching. After the age of 25, our capacity for taking air in starts to decrease. And if you can do any type of stretching, any type of activity that requires the free exchange of air, be it weightlifting or aerobic activity or swimming or something that actually gets us to use up and use whatever our vital capacity is, because it starts to shrink. You all read Song and Wind, okay? You all know that Arnold Jacobs' lung capacity, which wasn't that big at first, decreased even more, and it happens to all of us. I mean, all you have is 6-liter bags, those black 6-liter bags that you got however many years ago, and just try to fill it up if you haven't done it in a while, and just realize, ooh, it's really slack today. Hey, it's not today. It's been happening over the past 5 years or 10 years, however long you haven't been working with something like that. So this is something that we probably ought to do, and like I said, I'm talking to you. In a way, I'm kind of talking to me as well. The deep breathing is extremely extremely good to use, and all the other devices that are kind of extraneous. I mean, imaginary sucking air in from the end of where your arm is outstretched. The stuff that you see in that breathing gym that Pokorny and Pat Sheridan put together, just to get that stuff going a little bit before you even pick up the horn. It's really important. I'm telling you this. I realize fully that it's probably something that's not going to be something that's everyone's going to do or remember. But try to eventually, when things start to happen, at least remember this time, because your body will recover pretty quickly and start to at least get used to this idea of the greater air capacity. It's your fuel supply, and the fuel supply is something that's rather important. Again, your aerobic activity is important. Getting on the elliptical, playing squash. I don't know what you do, but it's really important. It allows us to exert our bodies a little bit. It'll make our sleep a lot more efficient. It will actually keep the number of hours in for sleeping. It'll cut it down actually a little bit, but it'll be a harder sleep. I'm no doctor, but I'm telling you, I'm sitting here and say, well, this is what it looks like to me. So maybe it works for you. Maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it won't. But I'm only here to recommend it. And as good as aerobic activity is for our bodies to keep everything going, because it's the only thing that we have that keeps that thing energized, one of the best things about it is that it keeps ourselves just a little bit more mentally focused. And you ask anybody who jogs in this room, and they'll tell you, maybe, that maybe the best side effect, maybe the best byproduct of all this energy, all this exercise that people are doing is the mental acuity that you kind of sometimes get. You're a little bit more alert. You're not so tired. You're just a little bit quicker. And it's just the oxygenation of the blood that really helps out. So put that in your bag of tricks as well. It helps. Remember, we're not talking about stopping the aging process. We can't. That hasn't happened yet. All we're talking about is slowing down the process of death. But not by much. I mean, it happens. Okay, I know a lot of people don't believe in mouthpiece buzzing. I know a lot of people do. But one of the great things about mouthpiece buzzing, especially when you mouthpiece buzz in the low register, it helps keep the air going, especially when you're in the low register, when you're buzzing loud, and you've got this incredible fast exchange of air. And buzzing of the lips requires more wind movement, and that is a very good side effect for everything. Along with other playing activities we can do, please don't forget long tones. It's the basic tapestry of what we work with. It's the basic tapestry before vibrato, before nuance, before coloring of the sound. And I notice it, and you probably notice it a lot when you have students, and they're trying to play something, and things are kind of shaking and baking, and they're not playing very steadily. This is extremely important that at least we get the basic tapestry of a steady sound. Get the steady sound before you add the vibrato. And a lot of people want to do the vibrato and get things going, but if you have an unsteady sound down here, unsteady production of tone, and then you put a vibrato on top, I mean, pass the Dramamine, I'm sorry, You have to start with a basic clean slate, and these long tone activities are very good. Steady, easy production of long tones in all registers, but especially the bottom register, is important. And do this while looking in a mirror to see that in whatever register you're in, the lips and the corners of the mouth do not quiver. If they do, start your exercise in a register where there is no quiver, and work up or down to wherever those quivers have occurred previously. you have to start with success. Find out where that success place is and expand upon that. I know you've heard that somewhere else, or you've certainly read it somewhere else. So that's something that is also should not be ignored. The low register is the most difficult register to get right. How many times when everything is going right, we will occasionally get to a low E or low E flat, the sound just shakes. Again, it's the easy free exchange of air, and between that and doing a lot of the mouthpiece buzzing and just working down there, working on Roshi, working on taking a tune like, well, the first tune I played was a simple tune, "Be Thou My Vision," a simple hymn, and you just work it down in the low register. It's something that will be really easy to work with. And that final tune that I played, from Ken Burns' Civil War series, the PBS series, by I think his name is James Unger, the Ashokan Farewell, with that solo violin that opened that PBS series every time it happened. So just take simple songs like that, play them down in the low register. If you play them up in the middle register, as when I started off, it gives you kind of a good paradigm to shoot for. So when you get in the low register, you just try to match it all up. There's a great method book that Phil Teal, bass trombone player out in Los Angeles, has, and it's one of the most mindless set of exercises that work. I mean, basically you're playing in a whole series of low D flats, and you do 50 in a row, and you do 5 sets, something like that. I mean, it's really ridiculous, but he forces you in this etude to just really go for what it takes to start the note, keep the note going in the middle, and finish it off at the end, so you actually end up with bricks of sound instead of the we all experience it, we all experience that. So perhaps by the end of this, we'll have a projection or something of where some of this information can be had, websites and whatever. Oh, and the news is,
If you could give me the transparencies, we'll make it so they can be seen.
oh, okay. Here we go. Oh, all right. Thanks, Ross. Okay. One of the things that really helps me out in the low register is something I learned from Tommy Johnson long ago and far away. Basically, he does an embouchure shift. Some people call it a cheater embouchure. Hey, there's no such thing as cheating in this business. You have to make what works. It's just that way. If I'm trying to get into the low register, getting it right around there, the embouchure is getting looser so that it can vibrate a little bit more freely in the low register. And it gets pretty loose, so for me, it's very difficult to actually get any musculature in there to actually control the air that's going past. Well, Tommy Johnson figured out that you could do some type of a shift, and I'm sure it probably came before his time, but unfortunately he was the one who hit me with it, basically saying, if you use the top lip a little bit more, the bottom lip a little bit more, depending on what your dental structure is, you can really help out. It really helps out low register. Now, I think probably a lot of us know how to use something like that. But it's one thing that really helps in the low register. The one thing that Phil Teal exercised, he gets you to work in just your regular embouchure. And if you work with the regular embouchure down there, it'll help out, but it'll make that register even better. Let me see if this thing is actually operating, because there's one thing I recommended in that Orchestra Pro CD where you got to hear the low E and the planets. How many people have heard the low E and the planets? Okay, we have a few disciples out there, so that means the most of you haven't. Whew. Okay. But I love this. This is like the price of admission. Oh, this is so good. All right. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this sucker to work. All right. First of all, you have to be smarter than the machine. Okay, this is Holst. Oh. All right, here's a... All right, now we're going to actually make this sucker run. Play. And volume level is... All right, well, I don't see a volume level anywhere, so... No, we're not going to hit it. It's got to be good, otherwise we're not going to hear it at all. All right. Is there an expert who would like to raise their hands? All right. A hero. Fantastic. We just...
Here's the track you want?
Yeah, that's the track. Yeah. Can we make it louder?
Yeah, I need to do it from over there.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put it back a little bit. Have it on play. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, we're going all the way. All right. Okay. Now this is a Chicago recording. Okay. I'm on it. You can blame me. This is Levine. I don't know, 1990 or something. Okay, not bad. Thank you. Now for something completely different. Any questions? That was a Roger Bobo, Tommy Johnson tag team on that one. So if you happen to find, it's on London Records. Sometimes they call it Weekend Classics. It's somewhere around there. It's not readily available. If they only knew about us, you know. All right. We're talking about longevity. One of the things that was brought up to me quite a long time ago was by Robert Marsteller, who used to play first trombone in the LA Philharmonic, and he taught at USC. He was always into lip flexibility, and if you hear it, actually, on the Planets recording, if you listen to Mars, on that LA recording, you'll hear the... It has a really wild vibrato on that. It's just, but that was Robert Marsteller who liked to play with that vibrato that kind of extends over about a minor third, you know, when he plays. But he was always very much into lip flexibility exercises, and one of the things that he really stressed to us, saying that it will really help your playing going on further and further, is to simply take a note, say like an eighth harmonic, fourth space G. If you have a C tuba, play it with a fourth valve. Except you're going to be using a metronome, and you measure out so that you actually are controlling that, essentially what it turns out to be is a lip trill. Anyway, the idea is that if you can go ahead and do something like that and have it at least in some type of a basic form of control, well then that will help you out in the future as far as keeping the flexibility is concerned, because you probably hear from and hear a lot of older players who have trouble simply moving between registers and moving between notes. What I was just trying to play there is something that something I haven't really benefited from, except for maybe the trill in Meistersing or something like that, or the C trill in Effie the Elephant. But it's something that the flexibility will help you in trying to do other things that you probably wouldn't even be aware of. Okay, there's another aspect of playing that we can try to help ourselves out, and that has to do with intonation. I use a tuner like this. I don't necessarily recommend a tuner. I do have a mic pickup that I attach to the bell, because of course if you're playing ensemble on stage, a tuner with a condenser mic will pick up any instrument in the room rather than the tuba, even if that other instrument isn't even playing. I mean, we never get it to register with what we're actually playing. So a mic pickup does help, and if you can work something like that, that's really good, at least as far as just getting the basic piecemeal attempt at, okay, if supposedly we're at A442, here is an equal tempered scale, and you can check out your certain notes, making sure your fifth harmonics are in the right place, your sixth harmonics are in the right place, something like that. So that would be rather important. So more importantly, there is something else. Thank you.
This is what we'll pass out with your permission.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you, boss. And that is, how many people have ever done the Steve Cauley tune-up system? Okay. We don't have it actually on projector right now, but basically you play along with a CD, and the CD is worked so that it goes through every scale, every key, and will show you just where the perfect fifths ought to be, the major thirds ought to be, the minor thirds ought to be. We're talking about mean tone temperament as opposed to a well-tempered or equal temperament. Talking about, making sure the major thirds are a little bit lower, the minor thirds are a little bit higher. The sevenths of the chord, say a dominant seventh, the seventh is 17 cents flat, and you basically are playing against a drone and the key of what you're playing, the notes that you're playing, so you can actually match up and you have somebody else to play with. Because it's very difficult to find people, and especially for all of us who are kind of in the bottom register, I mean, we think that that's it. The bottom is it. And for the most part, we're in root position. But, occasionally we do have thirds in the chord. When I've got students come to me and they're, getting ready for an audition, they're doing the chorale and Mahler second, I said, man, you've got to know exactly where those places are where you are not in the root position and what the tendency of the trombones are to be in that place. You have to kind of second guess what is actually going on. It's not enough to realize oh, I have to tune the note. Know the tendency beforehand. Let me just play a little bit of where this is. And we play. I have some of these notes memorized, so I know what I'm trying to match. Eventually, you get to the point where you have to pick, where you have a chorale to play, and you pick out the soprano, alto, tenor, bass line, and you have to be able to move the notes up or down as you're going. For example, all of a sudden you have a G, and you're in the key of G, fine. You don't have to move a thing. And then all of a sudden it turns to E minor, so your G has to be torqued up just a little bit because you're in a minor, because it's the minor third. You have to move it up a tad. And then all of a sudden it ends up being the fifth of a C major chord, and you have to tack it up, and then it ends up being an E flat major, and you have to take the G down a little bit. But anyway, let me just play for you. This is it's just kind of a wild rendition of this little carol here, little chorale. Now, notice when you're hearing this, it sounds like an organ, but there are no beats. Everything is stopped dead. There's no type of wavering between the major thirds are down, the fifths are wide. It's synthetically produced, and that's why everything is absolutely so well clear. Anyway, that information about Steve Cauley and his system will be you'll have it in your hands before the end of this session. It's really good. Okay. There's a couple. Oh yeah. Okay. If anybody, by the way, knows of a tuner that actually registers down to below pedal C. Personally, I would like to know about that. Maybe some other people would like to know as well. If you have any suggestions, please tell me. Now? Korg? Yeah, the cheap $19 Korg. Yeah, the little black square one. CA30. CA30? Korg CA30. All right. Korg CA30. Very good. I appreciate that information. I've been looking for something like that for quite some time. Okay, here's a couple other. This is getting into the realm, of course, of still just trying to keep ourselves going well until the end. Physical odds and ends. Glasses. Don't let vanity from getting proper eyewear, or your laser surgery, or whatever you believe in. There's some people who come to work on stage and they want to look cool. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, No, you got to be able to see the music, please. You know, I don't care what it looks like. You know, just please. All right, and of course, if you have a chance, if you do right now smoke, get rid of it. Try to anyway. I know it's an addiction. I know it kills. It kills you just to go through away from the addiction process. But even Europeans are kind of waking up. You know, lung cancer isn't a vicious rumor. It really does affect people, and I've seen it affect a couple people at work in really horrendous ways. So when you start to see non-smoking sections in Italian restaurants, then you know even the world is starting to wake up to this type of thing. And when you have a chance to not breathe secondhand smoke, I know there's no hard evidence of it, but really try to avoid it as much as possible. You know, it's like it's like having a public swimming pool and you have a peeing section and a non-peeing section. Well, I tell you, the guy who wrote that one's getting an extra plus for me. There we go. Yeah. No, it's, you never know. I mean, who wants to get into the non-peeing section? I mean, you know, it's just, one thing that has really helped out quite a bit, and I'm very surprised at this, is this. They've been around for a long time. And I'm starting to become very, very convinced of it, only because of what people have told me out front when we've done horn tests in Chicago. It stands to reason that if you are on the rather rotund side and you have thick thighs and you get your horn going like this, you've got a lot of area that is deadening the sound down here. If you have but one point that it sits on, I don't know if it makes a difference in this room. So there's a couple actual good reasons to have a stand. First of all, it lets the horn resonate a little bit more. It's only hitting at one point. The other thing is, if you're taking full breaths of air, and if you're standing up straight and you sit down straight, just like in all those Arnold Jacobs videos that you see, and you know you got to point it up and sternum out, and then you come to play the instrument. Everything collapses, you know. But if you have the horn that's basically at the level here, then you don't have to worry about collapsing here and not having the problem of the air. The other thing is that I think is rather important is there's a lot of players, and Jacobs was one of them, who started to have a lot of problems with the bottom of the feet, the knees, and stuff when you're playing later on in life. And face it, when you have the horn and it's sitting here for your whole career, a couple hours a day, it starts to have an effect. Now, I don't know exactly how much was attributed to heredity or, you know, his rather sedentary lifestyle. I mean, I don't think he did much exercise or anything. But if you can just simply get the weight off, it helps the air. The sound is a little bit more resonant. I don't see the only problem, of course, is it's another piece of junk to carry around with you when you're going around on your gigs. And if you're freelancing and can't carry everything around with you, well, then that might be a problem. You know, you have to weigh your considerations. But I've recently turned on to the idea of a tuba stand. Consider the possibility. All right. How we are really performing, the problem of objectivity. It's much easier to judge the playing of others than it is to objectively judge our own playing. This is because our attention given to others is limited only to observing and listening to them, and not in the playing or the production phase. However, when we listen to ourselves, we are also in the production phase. So that divides our attention. It's very easy to listen to others and listen to what they're doing. When we're trying to listen to ourselves, we're in the process. It's hard to divide our attention. Another reason is that we have a tendency to judge others by the product of what we hear and ourselves by the intent with which we approach the production. In other words, we are more apt to be objective about the playing of others as opposed to our own playing. Another problem of being objective is that the older we get, the less apt we are to accurately judge our own playing. I know players who at the age of 70 are quite adamant that they are playing better than ever, and are quite resentful of even the innuendo that some things in their playing may be slipping. Sometimes our delusions of grandeur may be viewed by others as delusions of adequacy. I had one player tell me that he is a money player. That is, he is a person who may screw up a lick in every rehearsal but will perform it perfectly in the performance. This is off the subject, but ironically, the players who are most critical at the auditions of people auditioning for a job in an orchestra are the ones who have not taken auditions themselves in the longest time. In other words, those who have not taken an audition in a while and have not been through the rigors of audition preparation and audition performance are the most unforgiving in their view of how somebody else is playing in an audition. We're in the midst of our third cattle show for principal trumpet in Chicago, and there's been some really good players who have played, and I know one player who played and I think maybe missed 2 notes in the preliminary audition, but for some reason that was not enough for them to get past the grease trap to get on to the next rung of the audition ladder. And I found it rather disheartening that would be the case, because if you flub a note, everybody flubs a note. If you're taking a chance, if you're making a musical statement, something's going to go wrong. Did you hear how soft Marty played some of that stuff an hour ago? Unbelievable. You know, and so much of it worked so well, and he took it to that extra level instead of just playing it safe. You know, there's too many of us who get into our mezzo forte, you know, here it is, you know, and it all sounds the same and boring as all get out. So it's okay to go ahead and take a chance and maybe flub it up, but the situation that we're having with our perfect audition system in Chicago is really biting us, because we're having lots of trouble just trying to find someone to come in and do the job. Okay, back to the subject matter. It was a little diversion. How do we find objectivity? Record yourself. This is a surefire example of what you sound like. You can then listen back in the third person to hear what is actually happening in your playing. Second suggestion, find a guardian angel. Find a guardian angel at work or in your ensemble in whom you have trust and confidence, who will tell you when something is going awry. A note that is out of tune, a rhythm that isn't accurate. In other words, someone who will be another set of ears to help you in your challenge to find out how you're really doing. You want to find somebody who is a straight shooter and who will give you this straight scoop. You don't want someone who's going to say, oh, sounds great. And then you find out later it was anything but. Now, that's one suggestion. The other suggestion is don't find a guardian angel. There is a price to be paid when a guardian angel is identified. You may not want your playing foibles exposed, but wait now. Your playing foibles are already exposed. Maybe many people already know about them, except you. After all, if you were aware of them, you would try to correct the problems. Additionally, you're probably friends with this would-be guardian angel. You may not want feedback if your friendship is liable to be damaged or destroyed. We can't talk about this at work. These are things that everybody knows, but you can't talk about them. You have to develop a relationship with somebody, and you have to. How many times have you talked to your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your son or daughter or something, and the only way you can really get to them about something jugular, you have to peel away the layers of the onion. Get that sense of trust going. Get that sense of oneness and confidence going until finally people feel relaxed enough they can really open their hearts and tell you what's going on. If they've got, problems or whatever, or you with them. Husband and wife, back and forth, It's always on this very safe level. But to actually get down to talking about stuff that's really jugular, like playing, and what's more jugular than playing? It takes courage to listen and accept what's going on in your playing. It takes time and trust to develop a relationship where frankness is the hallmark. If you want to get yourself in a situation where you can actually see a lot of these interactions take place, I don't know if you know the television series Everybody Loves Raymond. I think it's a really great show, and the reason why I like it, the reason why I got turned on to it is actually kind of a funny story. How many people have ever seen that television show, Everybody Loves Raymond? Do you remember this episode where at the very beginning, Raymond's in a airport restroom, and there's a guy there, a businessman, washing his hands or something, and he sneezes, and the only person around is Raymond, and this guy sneezes, and he gets it all over Raymond. Do you remember this episode? Yes, no? Okay, the guy who actually did that part, who played that part of the businessman sneezing, is a tuba player named Bob Joles. He's out in L.A. You'll see him listed he contributes to the TubeNet, Sean Chisholm's TubeNet occasionally. He's a music copyist. He's a tuba player. He does incredible brass arrangements. He was the voice of Bagheera in Jungle Book 2. And he did 3 voices in Cinderella. In other words, he's a voiceover artist. And he got me turned on to the show, but okay, that's how I got turned on to the show. But back to what I was talking about. The point is that you can look at these various relationships that these characters in Everybody Loves Raymond have with one another. And it's almost a safe way to kind of watch the relationship that you have with other people, either relatives or friends or friends that you have in the ensemble. So it's a kind of human interaction. Okay, final topic in this is ways to keep yourself musically vital. This has nothing to do with physical age. I've known 35-year-old musicians who are retired on the job. I've also known 80-year-olds on the same stage still excited about the music, still excited about trying new mouthpieces. How do we keep ourselves vital? One recommendation is to keep giving lessons, keep giving music lessons. But if you can try to keep playing along with your students, I know sometimes that's difficult to do, but it's something that will keep you vital as well. This will keep you thinking and working, especially if it's a good player. I had to practice before I gave lessons to Tony Niffen when I was in St. Louis, and he was a young student there at Kirkwood High School. But he was a really good player at the time. And I had to, it's like, oh, Tony's coming for a lesson in a half hour. I better sit down and practice. Like, wait a minute, I thought it was supposed to be the other way around, No, but I had to do that. So it's difficult to be running at 100% effort all the time, and that's one of the reasons why I made that Orchestra Pro recording on the Summit label. It is an approach of looking at the playing of an orchestral excerpt. It is not the only way. The point is, if you are a student or a teacher, to listen to an excerpt you are studying and find that which you agree with and that which you don't, and come up with something that's refreshing and new. That requires using thought more than chops, and this is what we're getting in essence to now, as far as our creativity. You have to get the thinking process more at the forefront of the activities. If you're getting to be an older player or a player that's starting to lose some of the high chops, it's okay. Find pieces that are musically but not technically that challenging. I encourage you to not give up playing altogether just because you may be more limited by technique, range, etc. Your musical voice should be one that is heard by you. If it is not going to be on the tuba, make sure it is on something. Don't let yourself be voiceless. I look at a buddy of mine, Red Lair. If he didn't have the sousaphone, I have no doubts in my mind that he would be as musical a person if he had the sousaphone or not. But he would find a voice somehow. He would find something to express himself with. As we grow older, we may not be able to do all the technical acrobatics that are required in the Penderecki or the Kraft encounters too. Find an adagio arrangement of pieces that are less challenging and see how your musical maturity can positively affect these pieces that you may have played long ago in your career. Find music that you love to listen to and play. If it's Puccini arias, tunes by Gerald Finzi, like you may hear tonight, a movement from a Grand Canyon suite, new music, transcriptions, anything, it doesn't matter. There was an article in Psychology Today regarding Jascha Heifetz from all of his recordings that he did from the beginning of his career to the end. And the technical stuff basically didn't change. What changed were all the adagio movements in that music, because that music became so much more sentimental, so much more poignant and effervescent towards his later years. Technically, he was still doing stuff just about the same. In fact, the guy who did this, he timed the first movement of the Beethoven violin concerto, and ended up being 0.3 of a second slower than what he did when he recorded it 40 years later, something like that. It's just amazing. But it was the adagio movements that made a little more sense. Try playing more and more by ear. Now, we're not talking about jazz improvisation necessarily, but be less dependent on the written notes. And there's a very good reason, because these go. Honest, they do. I know Arnold Jacobs was talking about that a lot towards the end. But something that you can pick up, at least get used to the idea of just being able to hear a tune, maybe able to sing a tune, and it comes out. In other words, try not to be saddled with written music. Another point, be unpredictable. Be unpredictable musically. Try in your playing to be unpredictable in your approach to a piece of music. Try not to be too easily classifiable or cubbyholed. When you play a piece by Bach, make it sound like Bach, not like you. When you play Debussy, make it sound like Debussy, not like you. The styles of your playing should be varied and unpredictable in an exciting, transforming way. I have a great colleague. His name is Michael Mulcahy. And when I attend one of his recitals, it's a panorama. It's a musical panorama. It's a whole new approach every time he plays a different piece. It's a fantastic adventure. Because he goes through a metamorphosis. Every time the composer changes, every time the piece changes, it's like a whole new picture. Now, there's another person whose recitals I attend, and another metamorphosis takes place. Every composer turns into the same piece. It turns into the same composer. Every piece turns into the same one piece. Everything is the same approach, the same vibrato, the same speed of the vibrato, the same width of the vibrato, same articulation, same period, same sound. And quite frankly, it's a bore. Now, it's technically speaking, this person plays very, very well. But, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, but anyway, try to be adventurous simply in your music making. Find players in your ensemble that you can use as a role model or a hero. They don't even have to know this. But one person who I look at also besides Mulcahy is Dale Clevenger. Now, he's certainly not the younger, mercurial, technically avid player of the late 1960s, early 70s that he once was, but he is at least as musical. I will imagine him when he's playing a solo and see if I will interpret, if I had the chance, how he plays a solo with a conductor, how he turns a phrase, and how he maneuvers the conductor to make it work. It's amazing how much he can control from where his seat is in the back. And also, I guess you have to find players in your ensemble that are examples of what not to do. Enough said. Listen to music a lot is another suggestion. This is a rather surprising fact, but a lot of musicians do not listen to music. It is not part of what they consider to be enjoyable. Either that or they listen to the same music continuously without listening to anything else. Even if they enjoy music by a certain composer, they will not take the time to listen to something else that is unfamiliar by the same composer. I plead guilty. Okay? I mean, I've been listening to some of these Finzi songs for a long time, and there's some that I haven't even broken the seal on. They've been in my library for a year. I mean, I can hardly wait, but obviously I can, If you haven't listened to a lot of music, especially up till now, get started, even if it's late. Put in your planner. Know what movement of a Mahler symphony you're going to listen to when you're on the elliptical at Bally's tomorrow afternoon or in your 20-minute drive to work on Monday morning. As you become a more seasoned player, listen to more live music so you're really in touch with where playing levels are at. Another point, have new projects in the firebox. Keep the flow, that surmountable, exciting challenges, which is what the definition of flow, at least in this term we're talking about, working for you. Working in a professional orchestra or a professional military band can be drudgery if there are a few stimulants, as in new music, a vivacious conductor, a new excited colleague, a new audience, a new venue to perform in. It's good to plan out a solo recital every couple of years and perform that recital in a couple of different places. Maybe give thought to producing a solo CD every couple of years in music you have enjoyed playing the best. It is not the product that is important. It is the journey that takes you into these projects. It's the journey where you go through the self-improvement and the self-renewal to keep yourself forward thinking about your playing. If projects like these sound interesting, realize that they probably will not result in monetary surplus, especially after you've paid off an accompanist recording engineer. Again, these are projects for self-renewal, so consider them as investments in your own future, maybe even a stewardship to the people who are listening. If you see your hard work going for free on Napster, you're a success. When they have to ask you what horn you're playing, because they have the CD but they don't have the liner notes, let me try and figure this one out. Okay. Try to do music appreciation classes in schools, churches, and community groups. I regularly try to do something like this, especially in like the grungiest areas in Chicago. Drag my tuba, drag in my tails, and try to get kids turned on to stuff like this. You have to be outrageous sometimes to get people to listen, as long as they eventually listen. And it's not how much you know. It's the enthusiasm that you bring, saying, look, I'm having fun. I'm having a great time. You don't have to know the dates of Gustav Mahler to realize, or the ins and outs of a John Williams Star Wars thing to get excited about it and to have kids see that you're excited about it. And it doesn't matter how outrageous it is. Look at the Three Stooges. They're as popular today as they were back, more popular than where they started, and certainly more than when television came into being. It's simply because these are grown-ups acting like morons, and somehow you have to, it doesn't matter if you're acting moronic, as long as you are carrying these kids with you, and sooner or later they'll be wanting to see what you're excited about. Check out Deanna Svoboda's brass rap that she does. I know somebody's got to have it, somebody's got to know about it, but it's incredible how she gets kids involved and into the music. Find an identity for yourself outside of teaching or the performing position. I once overheard a conversation one of my colleagues had on the phone in the orchestra lounge. He was calling his doctor, and it went something like this. Hi, I'm John Smith. I'm the principal triangle in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and I have a cyst on my ass. Now, what does being a member of the Chicago Symphony have to do with a medical problem? But sometimes we have people who are just so into what they are and who they belong to, and they can't somehow separate the fact that they're a human being first, that they have lives and loves, and then they have this work. But I almost fell off my chair when I heard that one. It is noteworthy that many of us have so many insecurities in ourselves enough that we feel we have to be connected 24/7 with the institution for whom we work. People, for the most part, enjoy you for what you are and who you are. Certainly your true friends do. You don't need to be inextricably linked to your position to be appreciated or enjoyed. Look for hobbies and other outlets now so you don't have an identity crisis when you leave the orchestra or the band. One guy Barenboim was trying to convince one of the violinists in the orchestra to leave, and this guy was very adamant. He says, I'm going to sit in my chair until I die. He's one of our violinists. And Barenboim, quick as a flash, the guy's unbelievable. He says, well, we can have the chair delivered to your house. true. Take advantage of sabbaticals. I don't know if sabbaticals are offered so much in a lot of orchestras, or certainly in the bands, probably not, but so many people don't try to take advantage of this so they can go on. Final thoughts: give yourself the gift of private time with your tuba or your instrument. We all experience the noise in our jobs. If our jobs are teaching music, being a student ensemble, playing professionally in a group, or teaching privately, we can easily forget the reason for what brought us to that ensemble, that teaching institution, that calling of music. No matter how much time you spend there and what your strata is, make sure you spend time with, as what Stephen Covey calls, your daily private victory. Spend some time with your instrument practicing alone. I'm not talking about the daily quick warm-up routines before a rehearsal or performance, but a relaxed time when you can invest time in the original basic exercises that you first started studying long ago. Revisit these old etudes, those old songs that helped make your success, make your career, and perhaps your present-day lifestyle. Remember that without those basic building blocks of playing, you would have no resume to even talk about. I often encourage players who have retired or who no longer play to give themselves a gift in exchange for all the gifts they have given others in terms of listening pleasure. Set aside some time that is undisturbed, your private time. Ever so easily, play the long tones, simple warm-ups, simple songs that gave you the right stuff those many, many years ago. Just the simple stimulus of breathing deep will make you feel better. I think it's a good thing to occasionally be alone with your instrument, not only playing through the simplest things, but to simply reflect with something that has been a part of your life probably longer than your kids, longer than your spouse, longer than many of your closest friends maybe. It has shaped your life, and maybe you have shaped other lives through it. It has been a part of your makeup. It is a part of who you are, at least according to so many people. Be with it. Make time for you and your instruments so you can reminisce about the very things that make you you. Another point, the hardest but the most rewarding pill to swallow. If you honestly find yourself falling way behind the abilities of the ensemble you're in, if you can look in the mirror and see you for what you are, that being a good producer, a good musician who has been worn away by the natural evolution of time, natural progression of age, etc., then have the courage to admit it to yourself first. Then gracefully, with dignity, leave your position before everybody else wants you to go. We had a great player in the CSO, he was in the woodwind section, with a great reputation whose age was catching up. He had a great career. He left about 3 years later than he should have, as those last years detracted significantly from all the great decades of work he had put in previously. Just a reminder, we are all renters in our various positions in orchestras, bands, even as students. Nobody is permanent. We come into a position, try to fill the shoes of the previous player, move the fulcrum, as it were, a little bit, then we move on to the next player, continue the process. A principle-centered person will know there are many noble aspirations in life to fulfill. When it's time to graduate from the orchestra, as Arnold Jacobs put it, let's hope we have the courage to do so graciously. If you are in the 30th year of playing or teaching, what kind of a career has it been? Did you work for 30 years, or did you work for 1 year 30 times? When you play Petrushka or American in Paris, is it the same old approach with the same old mouthpiece, the same old horn, the same old nuances, or is it something new? If you think about what you're doing, rethink it, and still come up with the same solutions, I think it's better than not having thought about it at all. I think of this entire topic of growing older and self-renewal is worth exploring. I'd just like to make a recommendation, throw it out there, that it might be good in maybe at this symposium or at others to maybe bring in other players who have recently retired or are in, say, the second half of their careers, some different perspectives, because this has just been coming to the forefront of my brain for about the last 5 to 7 years. Things start to ship out. All of a sudden you miss a lick you never missed before. I mean, albeit the title of this whole thing, boy, I never missed that lick before. So, any questions or comments? Anybody have questions or comments who are afraid to raise their hands? All right. Well, thank you for being attentive to a really delicate subject. If you would like to communicate with me about this, I'm more than happy to entertain the idea. As a personal note, I take off my hat and thank This convention, Ross Morgan and Jack Tilbury, you guys are just unbelievable for putting this together. I appreciate the invitation to come here. Also to ITEA, if you don't join. It's too easy to just get on the internet and get the quick fix approach for a lot of things. We have to be involved in our organization, and we have to be a part of the whole thing. Amateurs, professionals, students, hobbyists, we're all in this together. We're all on the same road, basically. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of your time here. So,